the Overman Warrior Podcast.
Hi, Rich Hoffman here. This is how you know you're losing when they can't close the gaps on polling. And I saw an interesting picture of Amy Acton at the new Buc-ee's in Ohio. There's a Buc-ee's location just north of Dayton, kind of along I-70, just outside Columbus. And she was there trying to look like a nice young lady, playful and trying to win voters over. But you see, she never has big crowds at these events. There's always a few cats and dogs and people who are kind of on the fringes that are with her. And she's usually in pictures by herself. Whereas with Vivek Ramaswamy, there's always crowds. There's always people from his past, family and friends who are talking with him. There's a lot of people from Vivek Ramaswamy's past and the relationship with his family that are very proud of him, very happy with him, and they're always at these events, shaking hands with him. I've been at events with him, and I know some of them. I've met his parents, and genuinely, this isn't a fake thing. People can say what they want about political candidates, especially when they're out the front runners. You can judge a person a lot by the people that know them, people who associate with them, people who have longtime friends that they've known for many decades and that still want to be associated with them. That's what you find with Vivek Ramaswamy all the time. And he's in all kinds of pictures where he goes to these events. There's all these people, spillover crowds all over the place. And then there's people who say, I knew you when you were a little boy, and I'm so proud of you, and that kind of thing. You don't hear that at Amy Acton. Amy Acton is a complete disaster. I would probably talk about her at all if she wasn't running for governor. She was a terrible, horrible pick by Mike DeWine, Governor DeWine. She was an abortion activist. He wanted to play nice with Democrats, so he put a major radical Democrat in his administration to run health. And at the time, probably thought it was just a reach across the aisle kind of thing that wouldn't cause any major trouble. But then we had COVID, and she became the lockdown lady. Her bad policies were directly from the playbook of Dr. Fauci and the CDC and the World Health Organization, which was dictated by China and written on the back of a napkin by Bill Gates, and a lot of radical money that was looking for to push the world into change the economy of the world and push it into a net zero energy producer, psychological Bond villain proportions. It was extraordinary, the whole COVID radicalism, that people even bought into it to begin with. And for the record, I never bought into it one day of that mess. I was probably one of the only people that even 1 second after these announcements, these lockdowns came out, I was challenging the legal premise of them. And I never played by the rules that were created so quickly by the Bill Gates, Dr. Fauci's, and then Amy Acton being the puppet master coming straight off of that. And then she had DeWine wrapped around her finger. And it's embarrassing, and DeWine's embarrassed about it to this day. And people don't want to talk about the lockdown lady who want to see her moving on. They thought that the Amy Acton campaign was going to be all about, well, she was just she's got a good bedside manner. Didn't you see the nice picture of her standing next to Bucky at Buc-ee's? She's just like you guys. She's a nice lady. She goes to, she and her husband drink too much and get in fights like everybody else. Oh, you're not allowed to talk about that. You can really tell that their campaign is falling apart because they have hired, and this is, I think, coming from David Pepper, big time. And I say big time for Democrats. He's big name in Democrat politics. He's always been out there kind of poking at conservative GOP activity. He's always been a major detriment, progressive. Hillary Clinton, John Podesta, those kinds of people. He's a disaster. And being the attack dog for the Amy Acton campaign, the Dr. Acton thing isn't working because people now have attached that to, they're remembering, oh, you're the lockdown lady. You're the one who caused me all that trouble, which Ohio's economy never recovered from. you're that person, I don't think I like you. And then the pollsters, the horse race people are trying to make it look close. Of course, most of the polling is Democrats. So if Vivek Ramaswamy has a lead, the way that pollings are taken, then you have 5-7% that isn't captured. That's part of the whole MAGA movement. And they're aligned with Trump, no matter what Trump does. If Trump picks Vivek Ramaswamy, they're going to pick Vivek Ramaswamy. And that's the way it comes out on paper. Democrats know that. So they've hired Marc Elias, who is if you don't know his name, he's a huge Democrat activist who uses lawfare in Washington politics to essentially drive progressivism. So the Elias Group is a Washington firm, and they were associated with lots of the reason why the election fraud of 2020 was covered up, because their legal challenges really prevented the advancement of any investigation into the obvious fraudulent practices. And Marc Elias is still trying to keep all that under wraps, and because if it gets out, they're trying to slow walk it to get Democrats back in the White House and put everybody's hot emotions on this on the back burner and just weigh it out with the court procedures that cool everybody off. And that's how he's managed to keep the whole election fraud thing underwater. So he was the guy who really kind of hid the January 6th thing, redirected all the efforts. He's a major anti-Trump figure, and he's guilty as can be at all kinds of bad stuff. And he can send me cease and desist letters all day long, and it's not going to change anything, because I'll go against any of those guys any day of the week. Happy to do it, Marc Elias. He's got a lot you could dig up the graves in his backyard and you'll find a lot of bad stuff. And that's a fight that's going to continue, as it should. But the Amy Acton people have hired him. It's largely through David Pepper, because the Amy Acton isn't getting ground. So in order to keep the narrative controlled, just as they did with election fraud for the 2020 election, they're trying to keep her activity on the COVID lockdowns under wraps. So the Elias Law Group, has sent cease and desist letters, several of them, to Jack Windsor, who does a lot of good work. Very good investigative journalist. And other Ohio commentary outlets, many, several threats. These aren't just threat letters. These are cease and desist letters. And not dealing with hypothetical legal mandates, but they're meant to terrify people into lawsuits that would destroy them completely. And of course, people who don't know better, the cease and desist letters, and Marc Elias, as people know it, most of the time they have absolutely they're completely, not to say they're bogus, but if they know they're phony, because the protections of Amy Acton is a public figure. You run for governor. The Sullivan case from the Supreme Court back with New York Times, that case kind of sets a precedent, and everybody at every law firm knows it. And typically, when I get cease and desist letters, it usually ends there. They know that it doesn't have any legal merit. But for the same reason, I said that from day one, when Amy Acton was shutting down the state, and Mike DeWine was just she was the health director, and he was taking her advice. He put a Democrat in his administration, which is dangerous, and he got suckered for it. And he tried to defend the whole thing because that's the biggest egg on his face throughout his administration, was the COVID policies, which Ohio never recovered. It's never returned back to normal. Still feeling the impact of that. And here this lady, Amy Acton, wants to run for governor and expects everybody to forget what she did. And so people who are out there talking about her, they're getting these cease and desist letters from the Marc Elias Group, from a Washington law firm in Ohio politics, in order to shut down the narrative, to give her a fighting chance, they think, of standing toe-to-toe with Vivek Ramaswamy. And if they think if they can get reporters to stop talking about all the bad things Amy Acton has done, stop talking about her drunken binges and hanging out and arguing with her husband, and her husband begging her not to drive a car down the road when she's drunk as can be, and then she's supposed to be a doctor, and she's all strung out on medication, which is all on the police report. It's all out there. Rather than defend it, because they can't defend it, they want to shut down the narrative, just as they did with election fraud in 2020. And who do they hire? The Marc Elias group, who is successful at keeping January 6 prisoners in prison, and people who essentially had a coup against President Trump, threw him out of office, put him in exile, and put the puppet Joe Biden in office, and violated the voters' intent. That's who David Pepper went to defend Amy Acton from critics who they know they can't defend their record, so they're trying to shut down the critics. And Jack Windsor being one who's got several of them. And all he's doing is good reporting and talking about her as a public figure or a person who wants to be a public figure. This goes back to the same strategy of why did Barack Obama launch his campaign in the living room of known terrorists like Bernardine Dorn? Why or Bill Ayers? Why would you know whether underground terrorists? Barack Obama was launched in their living room, and we weren't supposed to talk about it. And no one was supposed to talk about the origins of Reverend Wright in Barack Obama's life. We were supposed to just, that was supposed to be put away. You can't go after it. And people like Marc Elias, law firms, and I've dealt with a lot of law firms like these guys, and a lot of school boards. They get involved. The voters pick something, and then they come and try to erase it. That's what these lawyers think, that they're really running society. And this Marc Elias group, that's what they think. And that's what David Pepper thinks. And that's what Amy Acton thinks. My doctor title's not going to get me elected. My bedside manner, I stood next to a picture with Buc-ee's at the new Buc-ee's. That's not going to get me elected? No, it's not. That's what these people think. They can shut down free speech. They can shut down investigative journalism. They can erase the past of these scumbag politicians like Amy Acton, people who shut down the state, killed people, because she did. The isolation, the statistics are clear on the matter. She took Dr. Fauci's policies, the CDC policies. It was wrong, and they covered it up. And she went right along with it, and those policies harmed a lot of Ohioans. And when the case came out originally and everyone was running around trying to suck up to the local health administrator, I was the one who said, challenge it in court. And I was on a lot of phone calls where eventually that's exactly how the Supreme Court judged it, and DeWine lost every one of those cases. And I'm saying the same thing here with Marc Elias. His law firm and all his pinhead lawyers, all those little scumbags that work at that law firm who are out there advancing the undermining of American society by washing away honest votes, which they did in 2020, and they're trying to do it here with Amy Acton. She's bad on policy. She can't defend her debates and these forums where they have almost no people coming to them. You don't see anybody coming from Amy Acton's past saying, "Oh, I'm so proud of you." It's everyone's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you told me to wear a mask. I'm so glad you told me to socially distance. I felt safe." And these are the same people who put their kids in bicycle helmets to go out to the mailbox in their driveway. Those are the kinds of people that vote for Amy Acton. Rational, normal people who want prosperity and a government out of their life and want honest elections are voting for Vivek Ramaswamy. Amy Acton is a disaster. She's a drunk, chronicled by police reports, and she harmed a lot of people with her COVID lockdowns. And the Marc Elias group is putting out cease and desist letters to keep people from talking about it. And that's how they propose to get her elected, by shutting down voices who would critique her as a public figure voting for a public office. And people should know. And they can't defend it, so they shut down the voices. And that's their strategy. and it's as bad gets. It's everything that's wrong with politics. Marc Elias represents, and his law firm and law firms like them who inject themselves in voter intent to erode away their picks for representative government and try to get them knocked out on technicalities or legalisms. In this case, they can't defend a record, so they're trying to shut down the media from reporting on it because they know that people who do law as independent media won't go defend themselves in court. They won't go. They don't have the hundreds of millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, and by the time you take on a law firm like the Marc Elias Group, to fight them in court, they'll drain your bank account and destroy you, just like they did with Alex Jones, the Sandy Hook deal. They try to redefine how free speech worked, and some radical judges went right along with it to create some case law that people like Marc Elias can use to shut down free speech through case law. And they think it's going to stick. And it's all going to fall apart eventually because it's completely ridiculous. But that's the game plan they make. And they work as a radical judiciary in the background to undermine our country. And when you vote for somebody like a Trump, you see all these radical judges out there trying to undermine the authority with checks on power that they don't really have. And they think they have that kind of power because they've worked with people like Marc Elias, the Bar Association, definitely believes they're in control. The country club types, they might call themselves Republicans, and the country clubs, but they act like Democrats in all policy. And when they get in the legal frameworks of the society they run and the judiciary, they are very radical. And Marc Elias is at the top of the heap of radicalism. And that's where David Pepper went to defend Amy Acton from a record she can't defend. They went to Marc Elias, a Washington group, to inject themselves into the Ohio media to shut it down with intimidation letters. And not just intimidation letters saying we might do this, or cease and desist with legal precedents outlined. And they expect that even if they're smart, the recipients are smart enough to challenge them in court, they won't be able to afford to in court. And that's the way they play the game. And I would say call their bluff, take them to court, and get a lot of money out of them, because that kind of frivolous intent has a cost of its own. And they are definitely vulnerable along those lines if people have the guts to challenge them on it. And I would recommend doing that at every turn. And anybody who's received one of these cease and desist letters, that's how you play it. Send it right back in their lap. And they're not going to like it either. They're used to a one-way street, and they don't expect anybody to defend themselves. And First Amendment is definitely in the corner of the press, especially when it comes to the protections of a person offering themselves as a public figure. This isn't a private individual who is working in a practice of medicine and trying to live a private life. This is someone offering themselves as a public person, and they have to go through the vetting process, and media scrutiny is certainly part of that. So the cease and desist letters don't mean a thing, and you can put it right back in their lap and attack them for even sending them. That's how you handle those guys. But that's the level that they're going, the Amy Acton campaign with David Pepper. And they know they can't win unless they can shut down the opposing voices, and they're not going to be able to do it. And Vivek Ramaswamy is just too good of a guy, has too good of a past, and there's a lot of people that support him that have a deep history. That's ultimately, when it comes time to go vote, that's how it's going to play out. And Amy Acton is not going to be able to act her way through it. Her past has caught up with her, and the media has a right to report it so that people know who they're voting for. And Marc Elias, your cease and desist letters aren't going to be able to stop the trajectory. And I would say if there's anything good, any good reason to vote for Vivek Ramaswamy, as there's a million of them, I could probably list enough to go on for infinity. The intentions of legal firms like Marc Elias's group to get involved in our political system is every bit the reason to be angry at this and vote for Vivek Ramaswamy and destroy Amy Acton. Send a message to these Democrats who are trying to steal these seats with lawfare and not a legitimate candidate that can stand on their record, which Amy Acton clearly cannot. She's a drunk, based on the police report. that came to her house when she was in a fight with her husband, and he begged her not to drive drunk when she was overly medicated, and she's a doctor, and she's given health advice to the state of Ohio during COVID, which she locked down, put people in the nursing homes, and people couldn't see them. People died of depression. People died because it was the wrong policy, and the socially distanced mask mandate stuff was the wrong approach, and it harmed a lot of people because of its wrong approach. And she's responsible for every bit of it, and for costing Ohio a tremendous amount of revenue in its economy that harmed a lot of people in the process. That's Amy Acton. She can't defend it, so Marc Elias' group is sending out cease and desist letters, which tells you everything you need to know about her campaign and Democrats in general. They are ruthless thugs that try to steal these seats, and they try to run your life by using lawfare to get in office. And that's how they play the game, and they expect that their intimidation letters, their legal cease and desist letters, are going to scare everybody away from the truth, just as they did in the 2020 election through Marc Elias. So if you want to get at him, vote for Vivek Ramaswamy, make Amy Acton an embarrassment, and show them what Washington politics injected in Ohio politics does for them. Send them a good message. Anyway, Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you ever read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. And when I write books, I write about the subtle evils that go on behind the scenes that make these kinds of people work. And that evil never stands up in court, and they know it. When they look at themselves in the mirror, they know exactly what drives them, and they don't want that exposed in public. And that's why I write books. That's why I do these videos. And until the next time, have a good day.
Thank you for listening.
Coming soon, the politics of heaven in 2027. A treasure hunt through heaven and all human history.